Okay, remember that they are changing my voice. This video is about two main points. One is the idea of what the logical assumption is in regards to the economy, what have you. The second is why Donald Trump should immediately pass several bills, including one for hundreds of billions of dollars to build housing, about $100 billion to build housing for the homeless, hundreds of billions of dollars to build housing for other people, to help combat inflation, okay? And keep in mind, they would sell those houses and those units and then rent them out so the money will be coming back in. But they do so on a non-profit basis. Also, they need various food programs, which include farming programs. And pay attention to exactly what my argument is. So when it comes to the economic plan that I suggest, right, the War on Poverty plan, when it comes to billions of dollars for housing, billions of dollars for farming programs, why should they do that instead of giving the rich tax breaks and with no money going back to the poor? Because it's the most logical assumption as to what is best for the economy. If you look at the definition of economy, you'll see that I'm right. A good economy is something that's good for everybody. It's a good allocation of resources for everybody. It's not necessarily an equal allocation, but it's a good allocation. People don't necessarily have the same amount of money, but when you look at it, it makes sense. When you look at the massive wealth gap, it doesn't make sense. No matter what kind of labor they do, what kind of services they provide, it doesn't make sense that the rich have that much money. So it's a bad economy. When you look at the projections of Trump's plan, at best, it's a very, very bad economy. Almost certainly it is a catastrophe. That's why his plan is faulty. It is very unlikely that he's going to sell enough gold cards to pay even $1 trillion worth of debt off by the time he's done being the president. And then he won't even have control over what happens next. So what will happen to the poor in the meantime? What will happen to the homeless, including the 100,000 children that are on the streets, 6,000 totally on their own? What will happen to the people on welfare? What will happen to the people who are faced with the threat of their Social Security getting cut? Keep in mind, some of these people have heart conditions. They have various mental health conditions, and you put it in their head that their Medicaid and their Social Security might be cut. Not exactly the noble thing to do. A very sick thing to do. So even if it doesn't get cut, you still did them an extreme injustice. So as we look at this situation, and we say to ourselves, well, if his gold card plan works, let's say it works to the degree he says, but even better than you might think. In 4 years, let's say, it pays off all the debt. Well, why don't you pass a plan to house the homeless and feed the hungry? In the meantime, if we're going to pay off the whole debt and our country's going to be in such great shape, then paying a couple $100 billion, for example, to end homelessness and build various units is not a big deal. To pass another bill for $500 billion to build a bunch of housing units for people who aren't homeless, who are going to pay back the money with rent, what have you, is not a big deal. So why wait? For those of you struggling to understand what I'm saying, ask yourself, why not house the homeless right now if you're planning to pay off the debt to a large degree? What is $100 billion or $200 billion or even $500 billion to paying back, 12 trillion in debt or 24 trillion? This country has already demonstrated that they can have $36 trillion in debt and still have plenty of money for things. They just squander it to a large degree, which is also their stated argument, right? There's a lot of waste and fraud is part of their stated argument. So if you're solving all this waste and fraud, and you're going to sell these gold cards, you're going to pay off so much of the debt, you're going to get the interest payment down, the money you pay to service the debt down, then why not pass a solid plan for housing and food program immediately? Perhaps it's because you don't believe in your own plan. Let's explore that for a second. If you don't believe in your own plan, then you're just a very evil person who's trying to rip off the American people. If you do believe in your own plan even a little bit, why hesitate? So we see that the logical assumption is that they should pass legislation to immediately house the poor and immediately feed the hungry. And they should pass more legislation to get housing prices down by building lots of apartments and lots of small homes and tiny homes for the general population other than the homeless, who will already have homes being built for them. They should pass legislation for farming program, which is more effective and efficient than SNAPs and food stamps, what have you. And where the grocery stores and the other places that accept food stamps, might lose out, we find a way to make it up to them by giving the people food stamps as well till it equals out. Pretty straightforward. No matter how you slice it, it is the logical way forward. If your tax cuts to the wealthy doesn't work, you can always tax back the money and use that to pay for the programs that I've just brought up. If your tax cuts for the wealthy do work, then the money is not a big deal anyway. So I urge the president to not wait. Immediately write executive orders to end homelessness. I urge Congress to immediately pass bills to end homelessness and feed the hungry, and to make these arguments. Put billboards in every major city, billboards in strategic places. Get the American people on your side and solve these problems. And when you look at it in terms of Trump's legacy, he does not know what's going to happen with his plan. Nobody does. He doesn't even know if there's going to be birth pains initially with the plan, so to speak. How it's going to affect the stocks and the economy. So why not do something that you do know would work, which is pass a bill for $100 billion to build units for the homeless and to end homelessness. So when all is said and done, you can be the president who ended homelessness. Why wouldn't you do that? And set the stage for housing to be a human right that is brought into fruition. That philosophy is brought into fruition. Why not set the stage for that? What does he have to lose? You can tell whether or not that Trump is the enemy of the American people based on what he does in regards to the poor. Coming up with fancy plans, okay, whatever. Gold card, whatever. Over a year ago, he said that he was going to, come up with a solution for the homeless. But then in D.C., he said, clear these encampments by the White House. He has some kind of struggle with the D.C. mayor going on right now in regards to the encampments that are by the White House. So you remember that there's encampments by the White House and you don't like them there, but you don't remember your promises to address homelessness. And again, I'm not political. These are social issues. Where politics overlaps with social issues, that's where you see me taking a stand. I hope the president does the right thing. I hope he scrambles to do what is exactly right so he can look back at this term and be proud for the right reasons. Thank you.